Welcome to Finance at the Job Site, the podcast where construction finance meets the field. I'm your host, Rishi Srivastava, founder of Being Human. In each episode, I sit down with construction CFOs, controllers, owners, project managers, IT leaders, ERP consultants, and industry experts to uncover how they connect the back office with the field, choose and implement technology, manage cash flow, and drive profitable projects. Whether you are running the numbers, leading the team, or designing the systems that keep moving, this is your place to learn what's working, what's broken, and what's next in construction finance. Today, our guest is Luke Nelson. Luke, welcome.
How's it going, Rishi? Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Luke is a fractional CFO. So first section, Luke, is on your background and career journey. You've served as CFO for multiple construction companies, Gunther, JM Corp, and now run a fractional CFO practice. What made you transition from full-time CFO to running your own firm?
Yeah, I think it was like always this burning nature inside my soul to not want to just be like tied down with one company, right? I always, since I was like in college, I always loved the idea of being a consultant just because I love the idea of working with multiple people. And like when you work with one company, you basically have one set of problems. And in that fractional CFO role, every client has a different set of problems. And so that was something that always attracted to me. And, I finally decided to make the jump, and definitely glad I did. And some days are more hectic than others, for sure, but definitely happy I made the jump.
Yeah, you're cutting your own paycheck.
That's right. Yeah. That's the dream, they say, right?
Yeah. What was the biggest challenge stepping into the CFO role for the first time, and how did you overcome it?
Like for fractional or just period?
Just period CFO.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like understanding that you belong at the table, and at the table with everybody. I was a controller at a fairly young age, I would say, for controller demographics, and then CFO at kind of a young age as well. And so, you hear various people talk about like imposter syndrome or whatever, but like, I would go to these conferences and I was by far the youngest person there. I'm not anymore. I'm obviously 40 and bald now. I'm no longer
Just
the
like
young,
me.
yeah, just like you, right? I'm no longer the young guy now, but just being like, okay, hey, you belong here, you belong at this table, you put in the work, you have the construction knowledge, though. So just like really truly believing in yourself and just be like, okay, I belong here, right? So I think that was the biggest challenge for sure.
Yeah, imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Having worked across Iowa, South Carolina, and now addressing contractors nationwide, how do regional differences shape the way you approach construction finance?
Yeah, I think this is a great question because I have a very good answer, I think, to this. When I moved down to I lived in Charlotte, or right outside of Charlotte, for a couple of years and worked with a really good general contractor there. I brought this, like, we're Midwest, we're nice, right? But we're also very direct. I grew up in Iowa. And so
Mhm.
when I went down there, I'd be like when I first started, I'd be like in these meetings and I would just be very direct. And they were like kind of being this like Southern passive aggressive thing. And so like, I remember my boss, like Andrew, he was like, hey, like he loved it because I wasn't afraid to call people out if we were over budget or if our projects weren't performing well or whatever may have been going on, right? Like we're not going to skirt around the issues here. And so obviously, look, that's not as brash as probably like New York people or whatever, but like it was just a very big learning curve for me, and just kind of a different cultural shock to be like, hey, like I never thought I was like super direct, but like, well, apparently I was. I think just kind of learning how different cultures are, some people are always on time, some people are kind of late and those things like that. But I think just ultimately just being yourself is really what people want. So yeah, I think that
Yeah,
was really it.
everyone's already taken.
Yeah,
You
right.
gotta be you.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to be you. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
So besides the cultural differences, what about regulation and operation? And
Yeah, I mean, it really varies by company, right? Because some owners are laid back, some want to be very involved. Some accountants are laid back, some controllers are laid back. So it really depends on company by company because I like to be probably a little more hands-on with my clients than I would say other fractional CFOs. Like I always tell my clients when I meet with them, like I think of your company's financials as my company's financials and vice versa, right? Like I always tell them, hey, we need to do better on gross profit, or we need to do this. It's not always like, hey, you guys need to do this, and I'm sitting over here doing that, right? So I think it's just kind of learning that everybody has kind of a different temperament, and just like some owners want to be involved, some do not, some just want financial reports, some want to meet weekly, so it's all different for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's SMB businesses, the owner's personality kind of shadows the business.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Who has most influenced your leadership style, and how does that show up in how you guide contractors today?
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I got very lucky. I was an auditor right out of college for 2 years, traveling around, and I got a controller position for this construction company up in Iowa. Around $100 million general contractor, second generation, family owned, just a great company. And one of my friend's dads was a vice president there, and so he's like, "Hey, we got this controller job. This lady's retiring. She's been here for 30 some years. We would like you to interview for the jobs." Well, I'm making the story longer here, but it's easy. But I interviewed for this job
Yeah.
and I got this job, right? And I'll never forget it too, by the way. Like I interviewed up in this conference room and it was like the middle of summer of Iowa. So it's, 90 degrees out and very humid. I'm just like sweating through my shirt. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. I don't need any water, but yeah. But anyway, so I had really good mentors with this company called Woodruff Construction. They're still around, just a great company. And so the president at the time, Don Woodruff, he really taught me everything there is to know about like the hardcore pure construction accounting. Like
Mhm.
because I knew nothing. I was auditing not for profits, so colleges and things like that. And so I really knew nothing about construction accounting. Construction accounting in itself was just a whole different world. So there's also a handful of guys too with Woodruff, like Dave O'Brien, Jason Reckemer, Nick Ford. I'm calling people out here, but like I had a really good group of mentors, and they all kind of had different. One was really more operationally focused, but I would say out of that group, Don Woodruff was the one that really, really taught me. Just like, and he would always preach at me because I had this audit mind, right, where I was so
Oh,
focused on, all right, I'm gonna audit accounts receivable and dive in the details. And he always be like, no, Luke, we got to think bigger. We got to think big picture here. And so it took me so long to flip that switch in my brain to think big picture. But ultimately, I think like that's what separates CFOs from controllers and bookkeepers, right? Is like, we got to be able to think big picture. And then and when I left Woodruff, I moved down to Charlotte, like I alluded to earlier, and worked for a kind of same thing, $100 million second generation family owned general contractor named J.M. Cope, and Andrew Cope was the president there. And he was like, him and I worked awesome together. He's got this really cool entrepreneurial mind where, he'd be like, hey, we can go make windmills. And if I could like pencil it right for him, we would do it. So, he really taught me how to kind of think outside the box. We started doing some land development deals and things like that. And so like, that really got my wheels spinning as far as like I kind of alluded to earlier, is like, I can't, it's really hard for me just to sit in one box and just stay there. Like we started doing those things, and obviously like those are pretty lucrative as well. So I've just been very, very, very lucky to have really good mentors throughout my career. And, now I'm trying to do that with my clients, right? If I'm working with the client and there's a controller that I'm
mhm.
trying to teach to think like a CFO, or a bookkeeper that I want to teach to think like a controller, right? I'm trying to pay that forward, if you will. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
long-winded answer, but
mentoring.
I'm just super thankful for that whole group of guys.
Well, you and I met in Charlotte too.
Yeah, that's
So,
right. That's
what
right.
about that time?
Yeah, that time was good. Shout out to Charlotte. I like Charlotte, Rock Hill, South Carolina. That's where I worked. So yeah, Charlotte's definitely a beautiful, beautiful city with a lot of business folks, a lot of great food. Weather's awesome. You're not too far away from the beach, the mountains, and obviously, yeah, you and I met there. So, and I met a couple of really, really good friends there as well. So, definitely thankful for that for sure.
Yeah, even I'm thankful to meeting you there in
Yeah,
Charlotte, Luke.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The next section is on cash flow and financial strategy. You've seen finance from both the inside as a W-2 CFO and outside as a consultant. What's the hardest part about helping contractors get their cash flow under control?
Yeah, I think the hardest part is having them really look at it and change their mindset, right? And I have and have had some clients that they refuse to change habits, right? And they're complaining about, oh, I can't get bonding because I don't have any equity in the company, and then they go out and they buy $100,000 trucks or whatever, or they have no money and they're buying. So it's like really putting that cash flow in front of them and showing them how their decisions impact things are is what it takes. Um, I think specifically in like the general contractor world, cash flow is huge, but in the subcontractor world, it's even larger, right? Because of like just a trickle down effect of, hey, you have to wait 60 days most of the time to get there, 45, 60 days to get paid, right? And so if you
Mhm.
take a $20 million concrete company who's got 80 laborers, that weekly payroll is huge. That those concrete invoices are huge. And so you got to be able to front load that cash before you get paid from some of your contractors. So like putting that cash flow in front of people and actually seeing that, I think is very, very crucial. Yeah.
So, does line of credit and other sort of instruments help in managing this?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, line of credit, it's leaned upon quite a bit in our industry, right? And so,
Mm.
which I think can be, it's there for folks, right? But like, I think it ultimately kind of becomes a crutch at times as well, where it's just like, hey, we got that money, it's there, but the last 2 or 3 years, that money is no longer cheap. When you're
Oh yeah,
talking prime plus a half or whatever, right? Before
yeah.
it was nothing to be in your line, and you're like, oh yeah, that's almost free money, so who cares? But I think that's also where us as fractional CFOs and for construction companies, like we provide a huge value add, right? In banking and in bonding. Because if I'm reviewing their financial statements and putting together a financial packet for a contractor, we send those on to the bank or send those on to the bonding company. The bonding company is really, I found this just in working, like they love the fact that companies work with fractional CFOs, right? And I'm going to say, especially me, right? To toot
Okay.
my own horn, right? Just because they can rely on the financials and they know they're right. They know they're correct. They know our gross profit projections are correct. They know the WIP's correct, all those things. But yeah, I think the message though is like, the line of credit is there, but it shouldn't just be something you're always tapped into, right? So, I mean, if you think from like a big GC perspective, it just takes one big job to not get paid on, and you could be in some serious, serious trouble. So, or
Mhm.
any contractor, quite frankly, really. So,
Yeah. What about AR invoice financing? There's companies that do that.
yeah, I'm not in favor of that whatsoever. I think that you are, to me, it feels fairly predatorial, and you're ultimately paying just really high interest rates. Like I'm sure it works out for people, but I'm 100% against that.
When you come into a new company, what's your first step in stabilizing cash flow and establishing reporting discipline?
Yeah, so I'm probably one of the, I don't want to say rare ones, but I don't have a lot of fancy dashboards and stuff like that, right? Like I want to look at the financials and I want to look at the balance sheet. I want to look at the P&Ls. I want to look at the cash flow statement. And I want to look at the WIP, right? And so
Mm.
from there, I mean, look, I know you can build, there's all kinds of things out there to make a really nice deliverable for your clients. And like, I've tried that and some like it, some don't, but like, I think to me, it's really like, let's just dive into the numbers, right? What the numbers do not lie. Like they just don't. So let's dive into those and let's make sure that we are figuring out why we are where we are. How do we dig ourselves, out of this hole if we're in a hole? And then how do we kind of stabilize from there, right? Because it's just this weird thing that I see a lot where it's like, I get a call, someone wants my help, whatever, and then we get right, and then it's like, all right, now we're getting back into those old habits again. It's like, hold on, guys, like let's not do that. But that's also on me, right? To kind of to hold them accountable. So I think like step one is just like let's get it all out there. So I think that's really what I like to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, plain vanilla financial reports, including WIP, they have so much information in them
Yeah,
if used
right.
right.
Right. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Yeah. And you'd be amazed that like how many contractors out there, but I say this all the time. So let me preface this by saying I don't know how to pour concrete, right? I don't. So like I don't blame a concrete guy that goes out and he starts his own business, right? And he doesn't know how to read a balance sheet or a P&L or a WIP, right? Because like I don't know how to pour concrete. So I don't blame them, but you'd be amazed at how many contractors just don't have financial statements, right? They're not reviewing them, they're just way behind or whatnot. And I don't know how you effectively run a business without knowing that stuff.
Yeah, but yeah. So the smaller contractors, if I remember correctly from my experience, they just look at their bank statement. Their
Yeah,
bank, oh, do I have enough cash to
yeah.
run this
No,
thing for next couple of months?
that's right. And when I work with clients, like, oh, look, I get that. I understand why they're thinking that way, but that's not enough. And so when we talk about like what a fractional CFO can offer, is just like that bigger picture thinking and building that balance sheet, right? So yeah, that's great. We want to be able to make payroll, right? That's obviously the number one thing every
All right.
week, every
Yeah,
week, like we got to make payroll, right? So like, and I'm not blaming the contractors, right? That's their concern, right? That's their company, it's
yeah.
their people. So, but you're right. It's just not enough to kind of think.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, fractional CFO, I mean, you educate them a lot too on
Yeah,
all this.
for sure. Yeah.
The next question is, what's your take on pay when paid clauses? Do you coach contractors to embrace them, push back, or something in between?
Yeah. I come from the GC world. This is where I kind of cut my teeth. So I embrace them, right? And I think it's tough, right? If you're like I alluded to earlier, if you're a subcontractor, and you gotta wait 30, and not even 30, 45 to 60 days consistently to get paid, that creates a really, really, really big strain on your cash flow, right? Especially if you think about too, let's say you're a site work subcontractor, right? You're there day one, you do this big site work package for 2 million bucks, right? And then you got 10% retainage on top of that. So you're not maybe getting that money until the very end of the project, right? And so while I'm definitely in favor for pay when paid, like on a monthly cycle, I do think contractors really do need to try to get partial retainage from, or the GCs need to get it from the owners, but then as it trickles down to the subcontractors, right, they need to get that like kind of partial retainage as you near like you know 70-80% completion on the project, because it does create a big time strain on your subcontractor group. And so like if you're I think GCs oftentimes take this like stance where like they're gonna like butt heads with their subcontractors, or like I've never really been in favor of that, because I think like if the GC wins, sub wins, like everybody wins. All right, let's do another project. Let's do it again. Right now, obviously, there's instances where like a subcontractor is like defaults on a contract or doesn't perform or is negligent in some way, shape, or form. It's like, okay, now we got to go to battle. But I think like the pay when paid there is kind of like is there to protect kind of everybody. It just kind of stinks for the subcontractors when like they got to wait a little bit longer. So
Yeah, I was talking to another CFO and he was telling me about the retainage and how it's captured in the contract. Like, am I gonna get paid, when the landscaper is done or
yeah,
when
right.
the last day of the contract is? So what is your take on contract language on retainage?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, I think you really need to review that contract language, right? And I always like if there's like 10% retainage in there, try to get it down to 5, right? Like, I mean, 5 is kind of like the bare minimum that you see these days, right? I mean, I know, states are different or whatnot, but I think like try to get that down. And I often see too, subcontractors will be like, at 80% of when the GC reaches like 80% completion or substantial completion or whatever, like I think it's one of those things where like if you're a contractor and you don't review the contract and you don't ask, you're obviously never going to get it, right? So like the worst thing you can do is not ask. So why not redline your contract to say like, okay, we're going to do 5%, and then maybe once we reach, I don't know, 80% on our end, we get that down to 2.5% retained or something like that, right? So I think I think the biggest disservice you can do as a contractor is not review your contract and not try to just try to get more, right? Because again, like the worst thing you can do is not ask.
Yeah. And how often are you seeing contractors are not even reviewing the contract? They're like, oh, whatever, we just sign.
Yeah, a lot. Unfortunately, a lot. Yeah, I think it happens. I think it happens more than we would all want to admit, for sure.
How do you help owners and project managers think differently about retainage, bonding, and risk management so they're not surprised at the end of the job?
Yeah, I think every construction project comes down to risk, right? And so you're really evaluating risk from day one when you submit your bid, right? So
Mhm.
I think to me it's working with owners, PMs, and just helping them understand that risk and like when can we pull our foot up off the gas a little bit or when do we got to press down. So I think everything comes down to risk. So I I think too, especially when it comes to like project financials, I always tell my clients if we're not going to make GP, like our projected gross profit, I want to know right away, right? So we can do some things maybe bigger picture to adjust for that lost gross profit on the project or just for the company on the year, right? And so I also want to know right away if we're going to make more. To me, a project manager that sandbags their GP is just as guilty as a project manager that doesn't rip the band-aid off right away. Like I really mean that
Mhm.
because you're not giving us the real numbers, which doesn't allow us to make like higher level financial decisions that we want to do, right? And so I think to me, it's like no sandbagging. I tell my clients that all the time. I want to know, yeah, but ultimately the PM's fear is this is like if they tell us in our September WIP review that they're probably just going to make 10%, I'm holding you to that. And now all of a sudden it's making 8, and they're like, "Ah, shoot, I should have told them that, right? So ultimately they know like I'm going to hold them accountable to that profit percentage.
Yeah, it's very hard to predict the future. It's just such a
It's very hard. I think it's easier for general contractors for sure, right? Because you have a contract amount, you have division one cost, right? That's your PM, superintendent, dumpster, all those kind of division one things, which are usually pretty easily projected out. And then you have all your subcontractors, right? And so you have all your commitments to say, all right, I know all of my costs to complete with my subcontractors. And if I hit my division one stuff, I should be able to get this profit. Whereas if you're like a concrete company, you got to project out man hours, you got to project out yardage, you got to make sure that you're performing at the right clip. You know what I'm saying? So like it gets way, 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 way more difficult to. I'm actually going through this process right now with one of my clients. Is we're kind of struggling trying to figure out our projected gross profit on big projects because there's just so many variables, right? So, but yeah, that's a fantastic point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, CFOs like you who have this kind of holistic picture, they're so important to the industry.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
The next section we have here is on technology and automation. You're also the co-founder and advisor at Being Human. What pain points in construction finance inspired you to help build an AP automation platform?
Yeah, well, it really comes down to just pain and suffering, quite frankly. When I was like a controller, kind of cutting my teeth, learning everything. I've had to like fire AP clerks or whatever, and then guess where that rolls onto me, right? And so like I'm sitting here entering invoices or pay apps, whatever. I'm like, this sucks, and like it's just very, very labor intensive, right? And so and so I was like, when you and I kind of came up with the idea of this, is like, okay, this is what the industry needs. And so it really comes down to just pain. I've lived it before, right? And now I see it with my clients too, where it's like, you and I talked to one of my clients the other day, and she's got like, 100 to like 300 invoices, 400 invoices she's entering a month, right? And so with a tool like Being Human, where it's like, okay, it gets emailed right over to them, AI reads it, she verifies it, boom, it's right for approval. Just think of the time and repetitiveness that saves for her. So I'm excited to see where all this kind of takes our industry, because as you've learned, you're not a native construction guy, right? As you will, like
Mhm.
you learn, like our industry is super slow to adopt to technologies. I'll never forget when I first started, like and this, hell, not even very long ago, I guess kind of long ago because I've been in it for a while now, but like they were still faxing subcontractor bids, right? I'm like, when we had email and all these things, right? Like on bid day, we'd be like getting fax. I remember like sitting by the fax machine and like running them to our estimator. And I'm like, this is like, 2017. Why are we still doing this? So like, but that's just our industry in a nutshell right there for sure.
So, on the same topic, what would a person like you and I who have built this company need to convince the industry to change?
I think is just proven. It's a great question. I think it's just like prove yourself, right? I think I know that sounds probably a generic answer, but it's like prove that it works. And obviously, look, it always everything in life boils down to dollars, right? And especially for me, like who's an accountant by nature, like if you can make it pencil for me, save my company money, and save my company time, and obviously like we started being human because we wanted people to be humans, right? And like not sit there and be robotic, right? And so I think to me is like it boils down to dollars for sure, but also like what more do you want out of your employees? Do you want them thinking strategically, or you just want them plugging data all day?
Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
Which accounting or ERP systems do you most often encounter with your clients? And what are their strengths and pain points?
Yeah, so I work with construction companies only, right? I think most of your people do that interview, but so yeah, like Foundation is probably the one that I work in the most. It tends to be kind of the best for GCs and subcontractors. And then I'll also Sage is one that I work with a little bit too. And then QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online. Those are really the three that I work with the most. I would probably say I'm in Foundation the most though. I think the biggest problem with Foundation is it's really hard for other softwares or other products to interact with it. You would know this better than me. I don't know the like right lingo, I guess, but like it's just really tough to get things to work with it. So I think I really truly believe besides QuickBooks Online, like QuickBooks Online is just meant for like purely good, like just bookkeeping and small business kind of things, which is fine if you're like a growing contractor. That's okay, right? Don't get me wrong, but like I think at their core, most ERPs are the same, right? They got the same modules. They got if you know one, you can kind of work your way around all of them, right? And I also think like I think they all do good things and they all do bad things, right? Some have really good projection tools. Some have really good change order tools. Some have good reporting. Some are like easy to create reports. But yeah, I think at the core they're all kind of the same. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, strengths and pain points, you're just at least few of them.
yeah.
Have you seen AI or automation meaningfully reduce the time finance teams spend on payables, reconciliation, or job cost reporting?
Yeah, for sure. I think definitely payables, right? For sure. So and reconciliation too. I know like you got a great tool for that. So yeah, I think AI can definitely help a lot there. I think too on the job cost reporting and forecasting, I think it helps out, but I also truly believe that you do need project knowledge as well about what's going on in the job. The numbers are definitely there and you can kind of forecast out, but like if the PM doesn't know what's going on in the project, then then like you're kind of at a disadvantage, right? So I think you can have AI help there, but also still need the PM to kind of have knowledge of what's going on within the job.
Yeah, yeah. I think anyone who thinks that like AI can go and win in the stock market, I mean, they're probably fooling
Yeah,
themselves.
I mean,
Yeah.
none of us would be sitting here, right? We'd be living somewhere in Dubai or something, right?
Right.
Maybe that's what they all are. They're not here in Kansas City. They got to figure it out. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. What would need to happen for you to fully trust AI with core finance decisions like approvals or forecasting?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty dangerous slippery slope, right? And maybe I'm, I'm 40 again, so I'm feel like I'm getting old now, but I think like I always want there to be, as we say, a human in the loop, right? To verify. I mean, I guess it would just have to be, proven time and time again that the results are as perfect as possible. I even know a person's not perfect, right? So AI is probably a little more perfect as far as data entry goes, but I don't know that I could ever really truly get there to say like, all right, I'm gonna just review my financial statements and AI is like gonna do all of it, right? I don't know that I could get there.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Human in the loop is definitely critical.
Yeah, yeah. Real quick, I want to say something. So I think that sorry to interrupt you, but I do think
No, no
that
issues.
like I think that we're sort of like as a CFO, right? Like there's a patch and a tactic of leadership, right? And so AI is not gonna really give that to you, right? And so like yeah, it's great to rely on AI, right? For sure, but like you still have to lead your accounting team. You still have to lead your company. You still have to be able to sit in a meeting like this and have the difficult conversation with the project manager when their project has faded 7% over a 10-month job, right? So like
And
I think like I don't want us to lose that, right? Because I still think like that's a very, very big piece of what we do.
yeah,
Yeah.
tough contextual conversations. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah.
So, reporting, job costing, and ops. What's the one report or metric you always ask for first when you start with a new client?
Well, I think the one report is the balance sheet, right? I think to me that tells me the health. I think the overall health of a company. I think that's the easy answer, but I love the WIP, right? I can't get enough of a good WIP. I can tell how a company is doing on their projects at that given time, obviously, right? Because the WIP is really just it's a current snapshot, past snapshot, and like kind of where you're going as well, right? So to me, the WIP is where it's at, and I think that's like project specific, right? But the balance sheet obviously is the number one thing, right? Because you can kind of tell, what's their current ratio look like. They super debt heavy, debt to equity, all these things that we talk about all the time. But ultimately, I think the construction accounting nerd in me is like, let me get my hands on that WIP, man. I want to see that. I want to see if we're overbilled, if we're underbilled. Why is this project only 3% when everything else is 10 to 12%, and ask those questions and really dive into that. So
Yeah. Web's like so tightly tied to the schedule and the progress on the job, right?
yeah, and I think to me, I think people tend to like overcomplicate the WIP, honestly. And look, every company is its own. I would think some of my clients even think like we have too complicated of WIPs when I think they're pretty simple. But like I don't like to see WIPs that are like 20 columns wide, right? I think you just kind of need your basic like 10 rows if you kind of think of a WIP like that, right? Like 10 kind of rows, and which I don't even know how many I use, but like just I think if you overcomplicate things, it's kind of paralysis by analysis there with that. So for sure. So and I think too,
Yeah.
if you're trying to like show your WIP to someone that doesn't look at it all the time, their mind's gonna just explode. So like if you're trying to keep it a little bit simple, like, you know, I think if you're trying to keep it simpler for them, like I think that you're going to get more out of that interaction, that meeting than anything else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
You worked as a controller and a CFO. How do you teach project managers to actually use the job cost data you give them?
Yeah, I mean, that's an awesome question, and it's something that I absolutely love to do. So it's really about looking at your like starting with a good budget day one, right? And like you got to have the PM. The PM has to be bought in on the budget. Like they need to own it, right? And so I really think that contractors need to be holding their project managers accountable for gross profit on their jobs because besides like a superintendent or a foreman or whatnot, they're the ones that are driving the profitability on these projects. So I kind of alluded to this earlier. If we got a 10-month job and months 1 through 3, we are over our labor by a lot and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better, let's rip that band-aid off. Like I want to know. So let's go on ahead, adjust that gross profit and use the data that we have plus the data that, we know what the project is going to take to get it done. Let's use that and let's bump that gross profit down, right? Or vice versa. Let's bump it up if we can. But again, I'm going to say this again. A sandbagging PM, in my opinion, is just as bad as a PM that's not telling you the truth, right? They just are. So to me, that tells me that you don't know your project as good as you should. And so I started this when I was right in my construction career. Is we would go through, and we go through, once a month we go over all the projects. Is me, all the PMs sitting in a room, and we go over every job, right? And we talk about gross profit. We talk about subcontractor issues, payment issues, change orders, all these things, right? So I would open it up to the PMs, let them talk about it, about the project, and then I would ask the questions, right? But you can't sit there as a CFO and just like deliver haymakers all the time, right? Because then they're just gonna like shut down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So he's like, okay, okay, I see that. Okay, great. Thanks for that update. I see that your dumpster cost code is over by, a couple grand. Like, we got a change order coming for that, or what's the story there with that? Right. Kind of hitting them with kid gloves, if you will. Now, everybody's different, right? Some people can take it, but I think no one likes to be criticized. Right. So I think having those conversations, like not only, and all of a sudden too, then I would start to see like other project managers learn from the other project managers, if that makes sense, right? Because they're all kind of having this open and honest conversation about how they run their projects. So that was a very long-winded answer, but I'm very, very passionate about that. It's something like I try to do with every single one of my clients, is like that project, that monthly project financial review. Yeah.
Yeah, the alignment of ops and finance, right? I'm glad that you're passionate about, because
Yeah.
construction's success depends upon that alignment.
100%. 100%.
When a project starts to drift off budget, what's your go-to playbook for getting things back on track?
Go to the owner for more money. No, I'm joking. Yeah, no, it's just sitting down with the team to um like to just figure out a plan, right? Whether it be like, hey, have we been impacted by rain, right? Or have we had a bad subcontractor? Or did we have just bad performance, right? And so I think the longer you put off those conversations, the worse it's going to get. You know what I'm saying? So just be sure you're tackling those issues like head on. I think is the best thing that you could do.
Sometimes as a CFO, have you also driven a change order?
Oh my gosh, yeah, big time, big time.
Uh, so
I
it's-
Yeah, and I like, and sometimes you get subcontractors, or you just get contractors that are afraid to ask, right? They may not want to ruin the relationship with the GC, right? Or the GC might not want to ruin the relationship with the owner or something like that. But like, look, if they did something that cost your company money, why would you not try to get compensated for that, right? At least bring it up. And so those monthly project reviews that I was talking about, like, that's where we talk about change orders all the time, right? Okay, so why haven't we asked for a change order yet on this? Like, they're delaying us, right? Or like it's the fourth time they've changed the design on this. Like, they're obviously delaying us. So let's try to get compensation for that. So yeah, 100%. I'm driving those conversations. This goes back to like being in tune with your clients, right? And again, that's why I said I like to be a little more. I truly do think, in meeting other fractional CFOs, I'm way more hands on than most, but I love that, right? And so it's like being able to know what your client's going through, and especially like on a specific project, and like having that knowledge. Like, you can't ask them to do that stuff if you're not willing to dive in a little bit with them. So
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I see your approach is your approach.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Do you find most contractors adopt their processes to fit the ERP, or do you try to bend the system to match how they work?
Well, I think most people try to fit their ERP. Yeah. I think ultimately, though, I don't know that I love that way of thinking. I think we always need to be trying to improve with whatever we're doing, right? And like, because here's what people say, well, let's just get new ERP then. Like, okay, well, time out. Like, that takes, the amount of time and money that takes to get that accomplished. Like, I've done a few of those ERP implementations between me, you, and whoever's listening right now. I don't want to do one again. Like, they're not fun, right? So like I think from there you just like, okay, how do we, like, if your ERP is not no good, then by all means change, right? But I think like, how do we tailor our procedures around that, but still get the effective reporting and the effective, efficient process down to where like whatever we want to have happen, we're still making it happen, right? So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, ERP changes are very complicated.
yeah, very complicated, very complicated.
The last section here is on leadership, people, and the future. What's one leadership lesson you wish you had learned earlier in your career?
Yeah, I think to me it's just, and I said this kind of already, but it's just like knowing that you belong, and then also I'm gonna step back. I think the biggest thing that I learned is telling your employees that they're doing a good job. Hands down. Hands
Hmm.
down. Yep. And so I think that I always liked to hear that, right? And so I tried to do that with my when I was like a CFO for a company, like I tried to tell them that all the time. And I even still to this day, some of my clients that like have decently sized accounting teams, I will shoot them off an email or a text message or whatever and say, "Hey, appreciate your guys' hard work this week. Really good job." Right? And so again, that's how I liked to be led. And I think and ultimately like that's I don't know if that's really I don't know if that's really leadership, but it's like you're getting people to buy into you and innately follow you, right? And want to be a part of your team, right? Which and I think if you are leading them in the right way, like they're gonna have your back no matter what, right? And so I think the thing that I wish I would have learned better was like telling people like, hey, great job. I appreciate you. Like I need you on my team. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like even personal relationship, saying thank you to your significant other
My
is so
gosh.
important.
Right, right. Even like, yeah, that's so true. Saying thank you or like, hey, just thinking about you, right? Like to a friend or whatever, right? Like that goes a long way for sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
What do most contractors misunderstand about the CFO role, especially when they think about hiring fractional CFO support?
Yeah. I think that a lot of them just think that the CFO role boils down to like numbers. And obviously, look, it's in our title, financial, right? So like that's number one for sure, right? But ultimately a CFO should be so much more than that. Like you are part of the truly of the exec team. So like, hey, if you're coming to me for just financial related stuff only, like that's not what I want to do. I want to help you. I want to help you grow. I want to help you how to scale your company, how to think about adding on people, adding another office, things like that, right? About these big shifts that have the chance and opportunity to make a big impact in your company, right? But I think too, as far as a fractional goes, like it's obviously becoming a little bit more accepted, which I love. I think that people sometimes have a little bit unrealistic expectations from you as well. They're like, hey, I need you to like be on every single call that we have as a team. I'm like, okay, well, that's not really what I do, right? I definitely don't mind being on, calls. Like I love that actually because it makes me again feel like more like the team, like as part of the team. I think to me is like some owners really want us to be way more involved in like this little nitpicky stuff. It's like, sorry, you're not hiring a bookkeeper, right? You're hiring a CFO. So let's focus on the bigger picture items here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Bookkeeper versus a CFO.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Looking ahead 5 years, how do you see the role of a construction CFO evolving, and how are you preparing your clients for that future?
Yeah, I think it's definitely changing. So we've talked about this a lot. Obviously, this is like the crazy hot topic, but like it is like adapting AI, right? And it is learning to be mobile, agile. Maybe the old, hey, everybody working in the office, especially in construction, like that's kind of been the thing, right? Maybe that goes away and there's more of a hybrid workspace, right? Or maybe um I just think like I think we need to be able to adapt to technology because again, we've historically been bad at that, but then also not lose that, I said this earlier, not lose that leadership piece because I think truly without that, like we have nothing.
There's a core fundamental principles about various disciplines, construction finance or journalism. they need to remain intact,
Yeah.
even in the changing technological landscape.
Right. I agree.
The last question here for you, Luke, is if you could give one piece of advice to a founder running a $10 million construction company about building a finance team, what would it be?
Yeah, I think just be sure that you have people that are going to do things the right way with your finances, and always like kind of show you the real numbers and not try to make it look better or worse than it truly is, right? And I think that you can get by with certain bookkeepers or whatnot, but if you really are trying to scale your company, you do need somebody on your team that can think big picture for you. You don't need to go out and hire a $200,000 CFO. That's not what I'm saying. But you do need, if you want to grow and you want to grow at a controlled pace, which in our industry doesn't happen a lot, right? That's where guys get in trouble. If you want to grow at a controlled pace, you really need someone on your team that can help you kind of wade those muddy waters. Otherwise, you're just going to grow and just be out of your skis and not know what to do. And you're going to be in trouble, right? You're going to go from 10 million up to 15, back down to 7, and it's not going to be pretty. So, yeah.
Yeah, the processes need to scale, and
Right.
someone strategic like you,
Yes.
they can guide them.
Exactly.
Luke, thank you very much for your time. I enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah. Man, Rishi, I appreciate you having me on here, dude. Obviously, it's great to catch up with you. You and I go back a few years now, so really, really good to do this. Good seeing you.
Yep. Steve here. Thanks for listening to Finance at the Job Site. If you found today's conversation valuable, share it with a teammate and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. You can listen on Spotify or watch on YouTube. Just search Finance at the Job Site. Until next time, here's to building smarter, faster, and more profitable projects.